Welcome and thank you for joining me to another episode of the Wandering Watercolor. Today we're painting the next page of the Cute Cat watercoloring book. It's the book, it's a watercoloring book that I make myself by hand using lithographs. And thank you for purchasing it from me if that's the reason why you're here. And if you're just here to paint along, you could just kind of pause when we go over to the page itself. You just kind of draw out what we will be painting, and you could join us. Okay, let's get to it. So this is the page. This is the next page that we're painting. It's not exactly in the pages, or the books themselves are not always, the pages are not always in order. So you can just look through that one. I make them so that you can kind of like clip them and unclip them and change the order, or take out a page if you want to frame it or give it to someone. This is kind of I make it so it's portable. It's not the best design, but you know, I may change that in the future. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see what people say. So basically, I'm using the little brush that I've been using for these, and the palette. If you purchased the palette from me, this palette with the paints and the little brush that I put together, this is the exact same palette that I'm using, so you should be able to follow along no problem. This is just a little soap dish that I got for mixing my colors, and basically I always usually have a rag and also just a scrap piece of paper that I can kind of like test out brush strokes and colors that I mix. And yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. This cat, the way that it'll be painted is this part here where the muzzle is. You can kind of see the markings. The muzzle, all of this, the front legs, this is all white. And this part right here, that's kind of like a grayish brownish, and along here too there's some darker marks for like for what looks like stripes, and then the same with this up here, and then you can kind of see where the stripes are. So anyway, let's start painting. I have a little jar to the side that I'm using instead of having to use the reservoir of the brush pen. That way I don't have to change it out throughout the video. So the very first thing we'll do is we'll grab a little bit of the brown here. There we go. I'm running out of brown. I'll switch it up in a moment. You actually want to get like a decent amount, because we want to make sure that we have enough to cover all of this. And we're going to dilute it with water because we don't want it to be too heavy on the pigment. That way it's more diluted, so it's not as strong, it's not as deep of a value. That way we can layer on top of it without worrying about making it too dark. And since it's not like a pure brownish color, it does have a bit of gray to it. We'll kind of neutralize it with the dark blue. We'll go ahead and we'll throw that in here. A little more. Almost there. Get a little more. Excuse me. So yeah, so this is basically the color that I'm aiming at, kind of like a grayish brownish. Yeah, that's pretty close. The glare here from my angle is kind of like making it difficult, so if I go like that, it's excuse me, that's just so that I can kind of like see the color better. But okay, so that's good. I'm just going to dilute it a little more because I feel like this is too heavily pigmented, and I want to be able to layer it slowly. So we'll just grab that and then go right in. Might grab some water directly and then just layer it. Don't worry too much about making mistakes. If you try to be too meticulous with watercolor, it makes it look clunky. Like, try to just kind of embrace the mistakes. Like, don't fight them, just kind of like work with them. and usually it turns out better. I make mistakes all the time. I've actually had people comment on how they like my mistakes. Like whenever I submit a piece, or like if I have an artwork in a gallery and they're looking at it, people often comment on how they like how loose it looks, or like things that I would consider mistakes can be actually very enjoyable to the eye. The thing I like about watercolor is there seems to be a very delicate dance between kind of like order and chaos, which manifests very beautifully in a well done watercolor piece. Right now, like, see, I went out of the line a little bit. Don't worry if you go out of the lines a little bit. The only thing I would suggest is go slowly around the eyes, because that's kind of a pivotal point. And if you get the wrong color in the eye, it's not the end of the world. It'll just kind of change the look a little bit. But yeah, I'm just kind of putting it down here. The light source for this image is kind of coming like this. So if the back parts of the cat are a little darker, that's fine. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now I'm just going to add a couple of splatters, and I'm going to be kind of loose about it. Just some splatters. It's harder to deal with this brush if you have like a professional, like a sable brush, or there's some good synthetic brushes too. Like this is a really good synthetic brush, the Silver Black Velvet. I highly recommend these, especially for beginners. They hold a lot of water, so you can get like really good splatters and textures going with them. I'm just kind of throwing that in here just to add to the looseness, but I'm also trying to control it. It's a hard balance, but you get more comfortable with it the more that you do it. Okay, so there are some shadows here in the fur in the front of the cat. So it's kind of an awkward angle, so it kind of has like the outline of... So the light is kind of coming from here, so there's a little bit here. It's a little bit here because there's, you know, the fur itself is kind of sticking out further from the body. And then there's some here and here. So for that, we're just going to grab some of this color, which is supposed to be black, but it's actually a really, really dark blue. And it looks kind of grayish. We're going to add a little bit of brown to that to make it more grayish. And it's probably too brown, so I'm going to add a little more of the dark blue. There we go. So that looks like it's like a good gray color that we can use to dilute a little more. And then, okay, so this is pretty good. So that's what we're going to use for the shading on the parts of the cat that are white. So first thing is we'll add a little bit back here, a little bit here for the face. There we go. Like that. A little bit here. Some right here. And be loose with it. Don't get stuck. Even if it looks a little weird, remember watercolor dries much lighter. It looks a little weird right now, but it'll look much better once it's dry and once we layer the shadows a little more. Okay, so that looks good. Add more right here. Add some right here to show kind of like kind of showing that there's some volume, or you know, there's curvature to the form of the front leg. Add that there. Okay. Okay, so all that looks good. And this is just the first layer. It all looks very light right now. We will add a lot more contrast by layering the colors. We just have to wait for them to dry a little bit. And while that is drying, we will go ahead and mix the pinkish color for the ears and the nose. So for that, we'll go ahead and we'll grab our red right here. Do a little bit of white. I'm not a big fan of using white when painting with watercolor. It's just a lot easier, especially for beginners, to use that to achieve particular colors. When you don't use white, you're kind of relying on using the white paper. It makes it a little more difficult because you kind of have to gauge how much pigment you need, how translucent you need to make the, or I guess transparent, not translucent, that's not the right word. Yeah, transparent, you need to make the layer of color in relation to how much water versus pigment there is and what other colors you put in it. It's just a little easier if you use white. It's actually a lot easier. Okay, so that looks like a pretty good kind of like fleshy tone. And I'm just gonna dilute it a little more with water. And I'll go ahead and I'll put that in. It doesn't have to be like very vibrant or stand out or anything, especially not right now. These are just the base layers that we're adding. Okay, so that's fine. Excuse me, I think I ate something earlier that I may be allergic to, so if I'm clearing my throat or sniffling a little bit, that is why. Okay, so while all of that is drying, this is almost pretty much dry and ready to be painted over on with the second layer. But before we get to that, I'll go ahead and I'll mix the... Well, no, I'll wait. I was about to mix the eye color, but I'll wait on that. It'll be a little easier. Okay, so now for the darker markings in the fur. There's really two things going on. There's the dark markings or the darker markings that are part of the fur, and then there's also the shadow. So we'll first just lay down the darker markings. We're not going to worry about the shadow right now. And we want to get like a really dark, I don't know how to explain it, it's just like a really dark brownish, grayish. Okay, so this cat has, let's see, we'll go a little bit like this, kind of going back. That's one of them. And then another one, kind of like, it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, if you make it a little more chaotic, I think it'll make it look better. And another one going right here. And then the tail has a very distinct mark and kind of has like stripes that are coming off of the tail. It's kind of a weird marking, but they're going something like that. It's like a stripe going down and then stripes going off of that middle stripe on the tail, and just kind of like laying it down, making it like make the strokes very slow, or very short and quick. Not slow, quick is what I was going. Short is the idea, but you kind of see what I'm going for. And then put a little more right here. Also, I'm trying to be like, I'm following kind of what I have a photograph that I'm going off of. I'm kind of trying to follow what it has, but it doesn't have to be exact. I'm also adding my own twist to it. And you can also kind of adjust the stripes. Like, if you don't like how a stripe looks or where it's placed, feel free to change it. No one will judge you for that. I promise I won't. And if somebody does, you bring them to me. Now let's see. Okay, so that looks good so far. And now we're gonna go right in here where the markings on the face are, and they don't have to be perfect. The sketch, when I make these watercoloring books, I aim to make it look like a pencil drawing. It's just that you don't have to worry about making the pencil drawing. You can just go straight into painting to practice the painting techniques. So if you don't go exactly as the marks are, totally fine. No worries. And it's okay to stop and pause and kind of look at it for a moment and decide how you want to lay down the color. Feel free to pause this video at any time and go back and look over something. Okay, there we go. And make a little darker right here. Okay, that looks perfect. Kind of made the cat look a little angry. I was not meaning to do that. On the other cheek where I'm putting this little stripe, there's no actual sketch mark. I'm just putting it just kind of looking off of the other side, trying to make it more even. And then I'm just also going to add a couple of marks right here. I know there aren't any on the drawing. I'm just going to... A lot of cats have those marks on top of their head, so this kind of just makes it look better, I think. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I'm happy with that. But I just need to increase the contrast, and I'm going to do that by adding some more of the blackish bluish here. Adding brown. Okay, grab all that and then go right back in here. Okay. And you could just kind of add, I'm adding this purely to increase the contrast. You don't have to put it down everywhere. I'm just kind of adding what I'm thinking, like more towards the back of the cat here. And I might add a little bit right here actually, just to add some distinction. So you can kind of see where the arm is, kind of like that. There we go. And I want the marks of the cat to be very evident. Like I want them to be visible so that there's no confusion when I start laying down the shadow. Okay, go like that. Maybe a little more back here. I know it's not completely dry, that's fine. Just add a little bit. The reason why this spot right here looks so dark is because it's very wet. Yeah, it's not... sometimes you gotta tilt your head kind of and look at different angles to see the reflection, but if it's wet, it'll be a lot more reflective, obviously. But it will get much lighter. Like if you just pay attention to this spot right here, it will become a lot lighter as it dries. Okay. Okay, so I'm happy with that so far. Now, the mix that we had over here for the shadow, it kind of it blended in with what I have for the coat. That's okay. We'll let that dry a little bit. While that's drying, we'll go ahead and we'll darken this mixture. Add a little bit of the burgundy color over here. And add a little bit of the brown, and that's pretty much it. That's fine for that. What we're doing is we're adding shadow here. There we go. That's a little shadow. Add a little more shadow. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna add a little more shadow right here for the nose. Okay, so that's looking good. I'll let that dry. And now, actually what I kind of want to do is I'm just gonna get some straight bluish blackish. I'm just gonna grab that, put a little water in it, not too much. Dry off the brush. And the goal here, I'm gonna grab my little test sheet. The goal here is I'm just gonna leave a couple of little marks kind of like this, like just short, just to add a little bit of definition. I'm gonna do that back here. For the back, I'm gonna go right there. We go, like that. I'm gonna do that throughout the back because this is this side is supposed to be in shadow. Excuse me. This side is in shadow and it's supposed to have a little more definition to it. And the same goes for down here where the tail meets the ground. So that's fine. I can get a little more. I'm gonna put a little more right here for what I was doing earlier. Just kind of like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be fully connected. Just kind of like bits and pieces. Get a little more definition. Same right here. Same right here. Do a couple of strokes where the fur is sticking out. And the whole idea behind this is just to give more definition. That's it. Now I know it's standing out a little more. It's like kind of sticks out a little bit. Again, don't worry about it. It will dry a lot lighter. I'm just gonna add a little more, like not a lot. Like here, since the light is hitting right here, I wouldn't add too much, but maybe just a little bit, so we can kind of define the shapes a little better. And then definitely here where the mouth is. You want to go slow in this part. You don't want to mess it up. Okay. And that's all fine and dandy. And so we have the nose here that's drying. There's some stripes here that are drying. This stripe, there's some pieces that are still drying, so I can't start laying down the shadow color. But actually what I'm going to do is, since the light is coming down like this, the shadow of the cat would be kind of like this. I am going to add the rest of this. I'm going to just grab it and just lay it down. There we go. There we go. Just like that. That gives more of that feeling of where the light is coming from, so that's fine. I'm gonna dry my brush. Okay, so that's looking fine. Let's mix the color for the eyes. The eyes are green. They're actually kind of blue-green. And this color right here, actually, this would be a good color by itself. We don't have to do any further mixing. Let me just test it here on my scrap piece. It's a little, the color itself is a little too strong. So I'm gonna throw a little bit of brown, see how that looks. A little bit of brown. Make it a little more like a natural green. Yeah, see, that's better. See, because this looks a lot more realistic than this. This looks almost kind of like a marker, or very synthetic. I don't think that would be a color that you would see in the eyes of a cat. Excuse me. Okay, so we're just gonna go in slowly. You don't have to rush. Just slowly try to avoid. You can put this color over the pupil of the cat, but don't try to avoid coloring in the highlight, because the highlight adds a lot of definition to the eye. A little more. Go like that. Okay. I'm going to dry off my brush, try to pick up a little bit of it, and do that again. And same again right here. Okay. Okay. Perfect. So that's looking fine, and let's see, that's still drying. So yeah, this is actually pretty much dry. It ended up drying a lot darker than I thought, which is fine. I guess I had it kind of loaded heavily with the pigment, but that's fine because it does add a lot of definition, which makes the whole piece look a lot more interesting. So then the next part is we're gonna mix up the color of the shadow, which is basically just gonna be this color, the black color. That's too much dough. Add more water. You want it to be pretty watery. And I'm gonna test it by just putting some over right here. See how that looks like a shadow? Like this is the regular color, this is the shadow. This is the shadow, this is the regular color. That's what we're going for. So that's fine. So we will go like this. Just one broad stroke. If you go over it too many times, it'll start making the rest of the color run. Go like that. Try not to make it any worse. And I'm gonna put some right here, definitely right here. Okay. You get some more, kind of darken up this area. This is a much darker area. Like that. Like that. Put it right here. And then make this darker. Okay. There we go. And then I'm also going to darken this part, which helps the chin itself stand out a lot more. Here, a couple of strokes. There we go. And then I'm also going to add a little bit here. There we go. Okay, there we go. That adds a lot more definition, gives depth. Looks pretty good. We're almost done. Next part, we're gonna go straight for. We're not gonna dilute this. We're just gonna go straight for the pigment. Let's test it out. Okay, perfect. It looks. You can also, for this, you can use any, excuse me, for this, for a scrap piece of paper, you can use any paper. It doesn't have to be watercolor paper because you're mainly just testing out to see how much pigment is on the brush along with the type of stroke that you're making. And this is fine. So we're gonna do just a little dab very carefully, very slowly right there. That's it. And then the next eye. That's it. That's that for the eyes. But we are also going to go in and add a little more definition with the dark color right there. A little more right there. A little more right there. Kind of just like some short strokes. Maybe a little more for the, just kind of outline the face. And you know, I'm just gonna put in a little bit on the stripes. It makes the whole thing a lot more interesting. It has a lot more contrast. I'm gonna go right there. Maybe a little bit right here, just so you can kind of see some of the definition. Very gently. A little bit right here because there's a shadow, kind of emphasize the form, kind of like that. There we go. And also a little bit here for the nostril. Just a dab. Don't overdo it. And that's pretty much it. Obviously a lot of the spots are still drying, but that's okay. I'm pretty happy with how this looks. You can continue adding more like outline and kind of bumping up the contrast on the different values and shapes. But I'm fairly happy with how this looks right now. And that's pretty much it. Okay, so that was it for that one. Thank you very much for anyone who purchased the book from me and is just painting along with me. That's really cool. I appreciate you. I do, as previously mentioned, I do make everything by hand. Let me know what you think. If you think anything can be improved. I'm really passionate about this project and I love watercolor painting, so that's definitely, I want to know how to improve. If anybody has any feedback, just leave it in the comments here in the video or on my Instagram, or just send me a message through my website, wanderingwatercolor.com. All of the information will be in the description. If you want to purchase a book or excuse me, I should not have eaten that granola bar. I think there was something in it that I was allergic to. If you have any questions, or if you want to purchase like one of the little palettes that I make, or one of the watercoloring books, all the info is in the description. And also, if you have any questions, yeah, just let me know. I appreciate your time, and I will see you next time.